Hey folks, this is BestInSlot. Welcome back to Planet Zoo and our African zoo build. In today's video we are going to build our cheetah habitat. This is the start of our carnivore island for our northern part of the zoo. And I've got a little story developing as well for Carnivore Island specifically, we'll talk about that. But the little hook for this habitat, which itself is a fairly simple habitat, but it's going to have a walkway connecting the two parts. That's why we're building these two separate sections, as you can see right here. So basically the cheetah will be able to cross over the top of the path, of the guest's path, and it'll have glass on the bottom, and the guests will be able to see the cheetah walking right above their heads, which is pretty cool. I want to give a little shout out to Paul Slay, who is a really good Planet Zoo YouTuber. His tutorial, I actually did not know how to do this either, a slight inkling, but his tutorial on this is what kind of showed me how to do this in the first place. It's a really simple, easy tutorial to follow, so go check that out if you want to know how to do the same method. I'll kind of semi-explain it though, as I delete all this because it wasn't neat enough. I figure a straight line is probably a little easier to manage, but basically you make your two habitats, like so. You can see we've got one on the left, one on the right. Oh, we will in a second. Just make your two full habitats like so. There's one. And very soon there will be two. There's two. Lovely stuff. And then you delete a section of fence from both of them, as you'll see in a second. There we go. So delete the section of fence from both of them. Leave the gap where you want them to be, basically. And then you're going to connect those two fence pieces like so with the null barrier. And then you need to block in those fence areas with something. Just something to stop the animals actually escaping. So right now this is a single habitat with a null barrier connecting them across. And then what you're going to want to do is just basically put a bridge over the middle. It's honestly as simple as that. You'll see it throughout this video, but I thought I'd put the cheetah in so we can test it out. And really the first part of this is all going to be focused on building the bridge. I probably spent about an hour and a half just building the bridge and like making it look as good as I could. Other than that, nothing too special. I'd like to mix up the habitat a little bit more. We'll talk about that in a little bit. We'll obviously go in-game and I'll show you some stuff. I have been busy working on some other cool stuff as well, which you'll probably see throughout the video. There you go. As you see, if you click on your animal, it shows you the blue terrain where it's allowed to walk, and it can walk over. Absolutely no problem whatsoever. Apologies if there's some noise outside. Shh. There's a dude. He's like ripping up the carpet or something. I don't actually know, but something is being done in the hallway. We'll have to be very sneaky. Not sure why. Anyways, just building. I've never built one of these before, so this was a little bit of practice. What I really want is a net. I've seen people build nets before. I don't know how they did it. There's no net item in the game, but they're using something else to sort of represent a net texture. I'm definitely gonna have to make one of those because I think a net has, like, and you know, shout out if your name's a net. I think nets in this game would have a lot of like uses in loads of different locations, so I'm gonna look at doing something like that in the future, or just see what other people have done, basically. Yeah, but that's the basic foundation. Obviously, we're gonna decorate this lot, so we're gonna use a lot of these logs here. The theming for this area, so I'm gonna talk about that briefly whilst we stick some logs in. So this is the north. The north is a lush, verdant sort of area. That's the whole idea. That's how we split the park. Now, for a cheetah, that doesn't necessarily make much sense. You'd associate it with, you know, a savanna kind of environment. And I tried so hard to not... I think there's only like 3 trees in the whole thing. I just wanted to look at an example. I tried really hard to restrict the number of trees. And this is why I wanted a net. I thought maybe an archway looks better, a little bit less strict. We'll be making more of these in the future and we'll get some good practice in, but I figured that sort of looks like a barrier that you would use by flipping the fence upside down. We create this kind of metal barrier that still has air flowing through it, still lets you see the cheetah, but it probably doesn't let the cheetah escape, basically. I know what you're thinking, they can get off the side as well. I will fix that later on. I know what else you're thinking, and no, tomatoes are a fruit. Anyways, so this is that attempt right here, build some barriers at the side. Just so it feels more like a dedicated walkway, and, you know, primarily so that cheetah doesn't do a runner, basically. I mean, they couldn't technically escape anyway, but it's nice to make it look like they can't escape, rather than just technically being unable to escape. Oh, the theme! Sorry. So the north is meant to be all lush and stuff, but our 4 animals for this area are the cheetah, the lion, the hyena, and the puff adder, and I don't associate any of those with a lush, tropical, green environment. I associate them much more with a savanna, deserty kind of thing. So the plan is we're going to integrate some of that. We're going to have like a little oases. Is that the official term, by the way? Multiple oases? Is it an oasis? I don't know. We're going to call it an oasis as we put some rocks in. We're going to have multiple oases around that kind of have that feel to it. But other than that, we are going to try to stick with the savannah. And the idea, this whole area is called the Shattering or the Shattered or something like that, or the Broken. I don't know. I'm going to look into which has the coolest Afrikaans name. And you'll see back at the... We'll end up building it in a little bit more detail. But there's something I did off video, which is the welcome area to this bit, and it's like this collection of rocks in the sky, kind of like hung up by wire, that looks like the ground's kind of exploded around the path. You can kind of see it in the distance. I'm not sure if it's cool or not, but I like the story, and I thought it was fun. And we're going to go back to... I'm just going to focus on that. That's what I'm best at. Stories and nonsense and theming. I don't know why I keep trying to... I get these ideas about what I want to do and stuff like that, and I watch other YouTubers and I'm like, well, their stuff's a lot better than mine. But then I think, you know what am I good at? This kind of stuff. Let's just do the stuff I'm good at, alright? That makes more sense. So, anyways. The idea is the other guy, the one from the south, you'll see him in a little bit, he's going to appear at some point. He's come in and he's kind of like jammed the sword he carries into the ground and like ripped a hole in the earth and shattered all the rock, and that's why the rock's flying everywhere. And that's kind of drained the water away from the area. There's pockets of it surviving, but that's why the area is a little bit more dry than the rest of the north, basically. There you go. There's my story. They still need names, actually. I need to think about that. These walls will change. I look at them now and think, what was I thinking? They're hideous. They just don't look good at all. They will be changed later on, but really just largely wanted to give a lot of solidity to this bridge in the middle, so there's a lot of rock under there. Got the the crisscrossed logs in there as well, just to make it look like it's actually got a usable, realistic foundation, and that it wouldn't just tumble randomly into the ground, essentially. And gonna put all this fence in, gonna delete all this fence as well. So this is a wasted. This is when I should have talked about the story, because this is all wasted time. You have to do it sometimes. You have to put stuff in and hope for the best, just like life. But this time it didn't really work out. You can see it there, the shattering a little bit. I was going to bring it in here, kind of like a roof over the path into the raised area, but it wasn't quite working out. So this was all done Saturday, this extra bit. I started this on Friday, finished it on Saturday. Not today, I suppose. And I thought, you know what we need? Rock. We need lots and lots of rock. Rock is going to be the primary focus, because the idea is the world has shattered. Plants are splaying out from awkward locations, the rocks are tumbling on top of each other and forming columns. It's just about being dirty as much as possible in a lot of ways. There will be a lot of frankincense trees, but I promise, in the actual enclosure, there is only a handful of trees. The enclosure itself is fairly simple. I'm going to try to a little bit more focus on the stuff around the exhibits rather than the exhibits themselves. The animals don't necessarily want big, weird, fancy stuff. You can have your zoo itself be super, super themed and over the top and weird, but then the enclosure itself has to be a realistic, usable enclosure for the animal-ish. So I think that's the direction we're going in, especially with these last two habitats. But really, I just couldn't think of something stupid to do anyway, so that helps. If I get a stupid idea, I'm pretty sure we'll include it. So that's grabbing the guy. This is a guy from the south. So this is not the guy for this area. The idea, of course, is that he has... Remember, they're at war, essentially, the north and the south, and he's come into the north to smash it to bits, basically, to drain off its water and off its... maybe he's, like, envious of the water supply and the lush nature of this part of the park, because the south is very arid and dry, whereas the north is sort of lush and green. I've said lush too many times. So he comes into the north and smashes down. You can see the water's draining around there, and here we have lots of flying rocks. They will not be flying forever. So this is a little daft, I'll admit, but my feeling when I was making this is kind of like in Dragon Ball Z, when they're like charging the power up and all the rocks start to fly up around them. It was kind of the same idea. He jams his stick into the ground and then the earth explodes around him, the rocks kind of fly up around him and stuff like that. The rocks won't just fly, we do have this wire mesh kind of stuff that supports them. It all looks a little bit bizarre, but I've kind of committed to the theme now, so we're going to stay with it, basically. If I could get like proper thin wire, that might be even better, but this stuff is thematically appropriate anyway. First time I said thematically appropriate in ages. Right, that's a big old chunky tree. There will be more trees. Not that many more trees. Just going to block off a little staff section there with the thing we made earlier. Nothing too complex. It's coming together, folks. It's coming together. It really is. We are 3 animals away from finishing the north. I've got ideas for the hyena. The hyena... Oh, yeah, so that was the other part of this theme. So we're just going to be putting some plants down for a little bit. Big old tree there. So all the carnivores are here, right? So the idea is the guy from the south came to the north and he smashed the land up, and it's kind of created this opening to the north, and it's weakened the north, all this kind of jazz. So the king in the north, the guy who runs the north, the other one, he sent his most fearsome animals, his toughest creatures, to defend that part of the world, basically. So he sent the cheetahs. They're the first animal you see because they're like a scout, essentially, because they're, you know, speedy. Then the hyenas are going to be second, because... And we're going to emphasize, by the way, I'm going to talk about this, because hyenas get a bad rap, right? But they're very family-orientated, lovely creatures in a lot of ways. And there's a certain sect of Africa that regards them in really high regard. A lot of them regard hyenas, it's kind of like... they're very associated with negative traits, by and large. Well, there is one in particular that isn't. I'm going to go find it again, and we're going to focus in on that. So they're there for that, and then at the back, of course, overseeing the operation, essentially, is the lions. I don't know where the puff adder fills in, frankly. We're just going to put it in somewhere, basically. But yeah, sorry. Just doing the fences on the way in, just neaten all that up. Had to bring in something to... This was a pain in the ass. It really was surprisingly annoying. I always regret building a custom fence as soon as it comes to like the ramps, essentially. But yeah, it's looking alright. It's looking alright. Lots of rocks, as I said, lots of logs and stuff like that. Just anything to... It's funny, I was building this, and the main pathway going through it, it's not necessarily dumb, but it's kind of a double fence lined with nettles. And you know what it really made me think of? Is that very first zoo we ever built. There's a lot about this enclosure that has that kind of vibe to it, you know, just in the design. I think it's very similar to the stuff I used to build back on that first franchise zoo. This here is the edge of the zoo. So this is the water tour, the boat tour that takes you around Carnival Island and through the hippo habitat as well, from Hippo Harbour. And there's going to be nothing beyond that. I'm going to put some trees and rocks beyond that as well, so it looks natural. But the idea is just that that's the end of the zoo, and I want it to feel natural, somewhat. I've been trying very hard to not say natural. We're going to really focus in on the long grass here as well. Near enough the whole habitat is going to be long grass. The only place there where that will differ, because again, I do want to push this kind of savanna kind of feel. Right by the water's edge, that's going to be a little bit moister, essentially, but other than that, it's going to be dry grass and long grass. Realise that it looks like the cheetah can escape, because it probably could, like if it was a real cheetah. So I'm just going to raise up some bars there just to make it a little bit tougher, and also just thickening the whole thing up I think makes it look a little sturdier and a little bit more realistic. You can't really take risks with big cats in a zoo. Now a cheetah is very unlikely to do any harm to a human. Cheetahs are big, cuddly, very nervous animals, but I still think you probably wouldn't take the risk in an actual zoo, so... Needed an idea here, something to make the habitat... The habitat, I didn't want to go too far in terms of... I didn't want to make it distracting, right? The focus of this habitat is very much the pathway, the bridge over the middle. And really, I want to do like a complicated one down the line, or like a long one, or maybe one that follows the path all the way through. I think in our next zoo we'll definitely do that. And I wanted to bring in some rocks, so there's going to be a lot of rocks here. I figured what we'll do is a gradual plan that comes into play in a minute after many rocks. Just checking that the cheetah can't escape. This is our little test cheetah. We do need to bring in a couple more along the way. More long grass. Again, really want that long grass kind of feel to it. But I thought, you know what we could do a thing. We could maybe build a viewing slot thing. So like a sleeping area for the cheetah, but it's one-way glass. And we're gonna kind of like, in case you were wondering what I said there and you want to learn how to speak English very professionally, we're gonna build a viewing area into the rock, basically, because the cheetah exhibit is longer on the right hand side. Don't really know why, but it felt like a little small if they were both the size of one on the left. So we needed something there, and why not a viewing area, essentially. And that's about it for the habitat. The habitat is very low-key in a lot of ways, because I want you to be able to see it from the water, I want you to be able to see it as you walk past. I want it to be chill. So we're going to stack a whole bunch of rocks together, and then put our sort of one-way glass between the gap, essentially. It's going to be cool. It's going to be cool. Yeah, if you have any ideas for the hyena, or the lion, or the puff adder, feel free to let me know in the comment section down below. Haven't really come up with anything for them yet. I don't want to build Pride Rock, and I'm like, people keep suggesting it, and I love that people want to come up with ideas and help and stuff like that. But Pride Rock is so incredibly overdone, like everybody does it, that I want to come up with something a little bit different. My lines are already a little cliche because they are like the kings of the area essentially. So I'd like to come up with something that emphasizes a different aspect of a lion's personality. You know, cheetahs are speed, so they need an area they can cross over because they're scouting around, right? So they need to move from exhibit to exhibit to scout the area. That makes a lot of sense. Quite proud of that one, by the way. As a little viewing area, we're going to make that look a little bit fancier in a moment. Replaced the path fencing with the default inbuilt fencing. Now we're going to start putting some trees in. You know my love for putting frankincense trees in the rock. There's something about them with that dry, arid look to them and that kind of like slightly twisted bark that looks like they would make it out of the rock. You know, they would survive and push through, and I love it. I'm going to do a little bit of water in here, really not much at all. That's it, and it's really not a focus. I feel like if he cracked the earth like so, and I want to emphasize that a little bit more. For the puff adder, I had a slight idea of having it in the ground, but then the rock, again, sort of flies up around it kind of thing, so it looks like it's kind of like a comet that's hit the ground, and then the earth is splayed up around it, essentially. Something like that. You know, at the end of the day, this is our theme for the area, this cracked earth kind of appeal. God knows why, but it is. That's what I came up with, that's what we're going to do. So, yeah, we have to lean into it. Little bit of a raised scratching pole there, just stuck on some of the rock. Just make it more interesting than just sticking it in the ground, basically. So that tabbing you saw there was just checking that it the cheetah can actually climb up there and use the scratching pole. I'm going to put a little bit here. This is about the most plant life we put in this whole thing right here. Just because there's a little bit of water, I figured that could just about survive, but nice to cover it with rock. If you can just see all the green, it looks a bit weird, so you need to... Oh no, it's a big tree. I think I do resist. I think I put, like, that's the last tree right there, which for me is pretty good. We're going to sink some into the earth, because of course we bloody are. And I do think that the frankincense actually looks... I was checking what plants you find in this savanna habitat. I think the frankincense looks really good in the ground. Like that, and especially around the rocks. It's got this... I've said dry and arid so many times today, but it's got this dry, arid kind of look to it that I really, really appreciate. And I will not apologise. But there is only 1, 2, 3, 4 trees in the whole habitat, which by my standards is pretty good. Now, you'll see I'm messing around. I kind of got the feeling I had to put something in that area. It's very flat and boring in a lot of ways. I also want to play with height a little bit more in my habitats. I think we'll do that with the hyenas. We'll have a little thing. I kind of want to build a graveyard with the hyenas. I know that's a cliche as well. Well, I am tempted. And I just felt maybe there has to be something there, but you know what? Maybe there doesn't. Maybe it's okay for it to be a little bit more chill. I'm going to try to be a little bit more chill. I'm not making any promises, but I'm trying to be more chill. Don't know what this is, but I thought, yeah, it just looks more interesting. Got a little bit of a man-made kind of feel to it. You know what I mean by it's meant to be a hammer. There you go. That's pretty good. So I spent a lot of time kind of just scrolling through, trying to think about something that would possibly go in that area, and eventually gave up. I'll show you in game, and you guys can decide. But some info boards there, and you can see what I mean by that area. It looks very similar to Vichar, which is the name of our franchise zoo in the beta. A couple of benches. Of course, you want them facing the sleeping area. A couple of bins, and our very first vending machines. Very exciting. Couple of those in there, one by the staff area, bins next to the vending machines, of course. And I think that is it, folks. There you go. So, we're going to hop into the game now. We're going to bring in a few more cheetahs. And, you know, we can talk a little bit about what the next plan is, and you guys can give me some ideas and all that kind of jazz. Okay, folks, I decided we're going to try something just a little bit different for this end of video clip. We're going to steal an idea from many other talented YouTubers, and instead of me prattling on and talking nonsense at the end of the video, I'm just going to do some cinematic still shots like this off the park and off the exhibit in action. So you should spend a lot more time with our cheetahs. We've got 3 of them in the habitat, 2 males, 1 female, by the way, very interesting. And of course this is the shattering at the start. Lots of nonsense here. I'll try to answer more questions in the comment section. Let me know if you like this idea, if you enjoy this little montage thing we're about to do, I suppose. Let me know in the comment section down below, and enjoy.
Oh, pero sí es creo que seda. Solo ni alvin to grow or vaving to pretty.
I'll say Vara's the groove.
No, Tanyana.